how to call upon shamanic powers in an artistic performance, whether musical, theatrical, or otherwise. There's a lot of interest in shamanism these days, and it turns out that we can learn a lot from our ancient ancestors and their shamanic practices in order to benefit your art, especially the act of performance. I've been reading this amazing book called The Death and Resurrection Show by Rogan Taylor. It's kind of hard to find, but it is out there. And what he says is that the root, the origin of performance as we know it, entertainment, is actually shamanism. It's what he calls showmanism. The root of showmanism is shamanism. What we're seeing when a band goes up on stage or in a theater performance or a circus performance is really the vestiges of our shared shamanic history. And so today I'm going to read a passage from my upcoming book, Soul Force Arts, The Vital Role of Musicians and Artists in Creating a More Beautiful World. This is in the chapter 9 on wholeness in the arts. And I'm going to be reading a section from that on shamanism and how you can apply the lessons of shamanism to your performances and gain the sense of power and magic, the creative power and magic and wonder that the shamans called upon, and which makes a great modern performance as well. So before we get into that, and at the end, I'm going to share a really powerful guided meditation for you to begin to get into touch with your shamanic capabilities. So please stick around to the end for that. So my name is Joseph Arnold, and I'm an Alexander Technique teacher, a violinist, and director of the Soul Force Arts Institute. So here we go. Without further delay, this section, which I call the Shaman's Right, Wholeness Through Performing, starts with a quote from a Lokota medicine man, Frank Fool's Crow. And it's a couple sentences long, so here's the quote. "We are called to become hollow bones for our people and anyone we can help. And we are not supposed to seek power for our personal use and honor. What we bones really become is the pipeline that connects Wangantaka, the helpers, and the community together. This tells us the direction our curing and healing work must follow and establishes the kind of life we must lead. It also keeps us working at things that do not bring us much income. So we have to be strong and committed to stick with this. Otherwise we will get very little spiritual power and will probably give up the curing and healing work." Okay, so that's the quote. And now my own words. Have you ever wondered what a performance actually is? Why is it that we get up on stage in front of people and create? Where does this ritual come from, and how can we use it to better lead ourselves and our audiences into greater wholeness? Just as with our exploration of the healing power of the arts above, and maybe I'll make another video about that, but that's also in my book, answers come from our ancient past. In The Death and Resurrection Show, author Rogan Taylor says that the root of performance, what he calls showmanism, is actually shamanism. He writes, "It could be that the whole phenomenon of entertainment has its roots in the variety of methods and devices that ancient shamans employed to both exhibit and validate their extraordinary experiences. Show business originates in demonstrations of spirit power, which give a teaching about the supernatural, and instruction in the art of transformation from sickness into health." End quote. In other words, a performance, whether shamanic, musical, theatrical, or otherwise, is not merely an act of entertainment. Rather, it is the magical invocation of superhuman realities via the performer's extraordinary artistic abilities in service of the healing and wholeness of both the performer and audience. You, as an artist, can gain access to the shaman's power by learning the shaman's approach to performance. This approach contains all the vital ingredients to performance with soul force, and applying it will greatly benefit your ability to give the magical, spine-tingling, and transformative performances both you and your audience's desire. To learn the shaman skills is your birthright and not an act of cultural appropriation. Because in truth, all human societies have shamanistic roots. Plus, according to Taylor, all contemporary performers already draw upon the shaman's powers when up on stage, only without being aware that they are doing so. Therefore, learning a shamanic approach to performance takes nothing away from anyone else, and is more accurately regarded as a means of reconnecting with your own cultural heritage, however indirectly. Furthermore, we live in a time when many in our contemporary society have little to no connection with their own cultural heritage, and for some, such disconnection is a source of depression and anxiety. The promise of embracing the shaman's take on performance is that you can actually bring healing to this source of pain, and thereby do a great service to yourself, your art, and those around you. What's the process of becoming a shaman? It involves 2 initiations, both centered around a healing journey. In shamanistic cultures, such as those of the Eskimos and the Siberian tribes, the first sign that someone was destined to become a shaman was a prolonged childhood illness. Far from being a calamity, such an illness was regarded as an initiatory process that, if successfully navigated, often with the help of experienced elders, armed the young person with first-hand knowledge of certain healing powers. Taylor writes, "It is the shaman's own susceptibility to sickness that paradoxically leads towards the experience which not only cures himself, but also provides the power to cure others." In other words, the shaman is the quintessential wounded healer. The second initiation comes when it was time to claim the official role of shaman in their tribe. This consisted of gaining the trust and admiration of their community through a display of their powers. According to Taylor, this display is what eventually became our contemporary show business and artistic performance practices. Once accepted in their official role, ancient shamans would then work to bring healing to the members of their tribe. This they would do by reenacting their own healing journey in the presence of the patient and with the active participation of the entire tribe. For the shaman, all illnesses have the same root cause, soul loss, which is a form of anxiety that comes from being separated from one's divinity, community, or purpose. Thus, the shaman's cure was one for the human condition in general, and its efficacy rested on the shaman's ability to produce an ecstatic condition in themselves, their patient, and everyone else present. According to Taylor, the shaman's main healing force came from the power his or her performance had to, quote, abolish temporarily the psychic boundaries between the mundane and the supernatural worlds. The shaman leads those present into direct experiential contact with the spirit powers, primarily those that dwell in the underworld. He knows how therapeutically effective such experiences can be because the cure of his own sickness was accomplished through precisely such a magical journey. His show dramatically imitates initiation, seducing both patient and audience into a mini descent into hell, and simultaneously invites them to accomplish their own act of self-renewal. Through the use of chanting, drumming, singing, dancing, storytelling, and divination, the shaman, these are my words, through the use of chanting, drumming, singing, dancing, storytelling, and divination, the shaman gradually brought everyone present into an ecstatic trance, one in which the psychological barriers between individuals were dissolved, leaving any distinction between performer and audience non-existent. In this altered state, encounters with the spirit powers became possible, and guided by the shaman's experience and learning, messages from the underworld or the spirit world could surface about how best to treat the patient. By the end of the shaman's seance, everyone gathered would feel refreshed and rejuvenated, better able to meet life's challenges through a renewed sense of connection with something bigger than themselves. This is what a performance is really about. Okay, so that's an introduction to shamanism in performance, and now what we're going to do is have a guided journey into the underworld. I'm going to lead you on a guided journey so that you can have your own experience of this and hopefully bring back something of value from the underworld into your artistic practices. So if you're doing something else, why don't you pause what you're doing, or maybe come back to this video later to listen to it. This will be best done in a quiet place with eyes closed, maybe lying down or sitting comfortably. So I'll assume that you're ready to go and not distracted by anything else. Here we go. So first, get in touch with your body, take a deep breath. And let yourself be supported by the chair or the floor beneath you or your bed. And imagine yourself in an ancient forest. There's a clearing in the forest. You can see all these gigantic ancient trees all around you. There's some birds singing, and you can feel the moss under your feet. And you look down, and wouldn't you know it, there's a hobbit hole there, a hole in the ground with a little door. What a funny thing to find in this forest. And become curious about what's in there, what's under there. So you open the door and you see the darkness below, and you step inside. And you go down a spiral staircase. Beautiful spiral staircase that leads into a dark cave. And after a moment of letting your eyes get adjusted, you see that there's a light, a soft glow on the other side of the cave. So you walk towards it, past the stalagmites and stalactites, the sound of water dripping in the distance, and you gaze into this soft glowing light. This is the light of your soul. You peer into this light and ask this light about your first initiation, which is a pivotal, challenging childhood event that really made you who you are today. Something which, even if it was very difficult, made you grow, and whose healing has perhaps given you special powers. So just let that event come up into this light. And ask the light, what are the special powers that you got? What are the gifts that you got from this event? And just let an answer arise. Next, ask the light about your second initiation, the one where you began to bring your art more publicly. What was that like? What was that moment? Maybe it's something that hasn't yet happened. Maybe it's happened a long time ago. Maybe it's ongoing. In any case, what was that event or that series of events, that initiation into sharing your art publicly. And how did that shape you? What gold, what special powers, what gifts did you get from that initiation? Okay, if you want to spend more time with this, just feel free to hit the pause button. But when you're ready, you can turn away from the glowing light in the cave and back towards that spiral staircase, taking along with you the messages that you got from the glowing light. And go back up the spiral staircase and you can see the light above you, and then open up that door and there's that ancient forest again. Look around, see the butterflies, and those incredibly old trees. And just notice what's changed inside you. How do you feel? What gifts have you brought back from the underworld? Okay, then slowly open your eyes and come back into the room. So, yeah, I hope that was helpful for you. I do have, one of the great lessons of shamanism is that what was painful, what was difficult, a sickness, a challenge of some kind, there's always gold in these kinds of things. And when you go through that and come out the other side healed and whole and more alive, then that is the gift you can give to your audiences through your art. You know, just like you can tell when somebody's been through a lot and come out of it like a better person. You know, sometimes traumatic events can weaken you, but if you do the right kind of healing work, the sufficient healing work, even the most traumatic events can lead you to become the next version of yourself, a more whole, more capable, resilient, joyful, loving version of yourself. And then that energy is what comes through in your performances, in your art. And that will increase your creative power dramatically. You know, it's the difference between someone who's very shallow and someone who's very deep. You could tell they have a different energy. The same is true with various kinds of art. There's very shallow art and there's very deep art, and you can tell when you're in the presence of which one. What does it do to you to be in the presence of something shallow or something deep? Right? It's very different. So, yeah, I was just looking at my notes there, and I don't need to finish that section reading what I wrote there. So, one of the most important parts of becoming a soul force artist, and this is something that is so rarely talked about in arts schools or music lessons, that kind of thing, is the healing of your soul. Because you can only be as creative as your soul will allow. And if you are carrying around a lot of emotional baggage, that's not going to help. Now, it's not that emotional baggage is a problem. Everybody has it. I have it, you have it, everybody does. It's what you do with it that really makes the difference. And what we can learn from shamanism is that you heal it, you learn how to heal it, you learn how to retrieve your soul, retrieve what was lost, and then you use that knowledge to help heal and make whole your audiences. You will gain great creative power from doing this. The creative power that is your birthright. Okay. So that's all for today. Please visit my website, josepharnold.com. Check out my other videos here on YouTube. If you like this stuff, please hit subscribe and like this video. Sign up for my email list on my website to become one of the first to know about my upcoming book, which will be out in hopefully the middle of this fall, 2023. And if you want to take lessons with me on any of the Soul Force material or the Alexander technique, please reach out to me via my website. I will have courses and group classes and private lessons and all kinds of other things available once my book comes out. Right now, all my energy is just going towards that. But afterwards, we can have fun together, exploring all this stuff in person and online. Okay, I'll see you next time.